So what does it take to make your first million, to scale a business, or to get your first high street listing? I'm Oliver Bruce, founder and entrepreneur myself, and I ask industry leaders and entrepreneurs on my award-winning podcast, Success is in the Mind, exactly that. From high-growth startups to scale-ups and businesses about to exit, I am joined weekly by the founders of businesses like Octopus Energy, Genies, Thursday Dating, Habito, Cano Water and Hera, as well as many more. From sportswear to tech, energy to consumables, hear it here firsthand from those entrepreneurs innovating and disrupting. Join me every Wednesday from 8 a.m.
It was the first time that I'd ever really experienced failure. And I don't think I was mentally prepared for it. Having been through it, and it was very, very depressing and dark when I went through it. When I came out of it, I realized how important an experience it was to have gone through and how much you learn from that experience.
Thank you so much to our headline sponsors for the year, Capsule Cover. Capsule Cover, a specialist insurance partner to growth businesses, supports some of the UK's most innovative and ambitious companies. Sponsoring each and every one of our podcasts, we're on a journey with Capsule, and so should you be. If you're a scale-up or an ambitious high-growth business, check out how Capsule Cover can help you with bespoke insurance solutions. Inquire via capsulecover.com and quote Success22. So coming up in today's episode, we've a blinder. We former pop star turned presenter turned clothing entrepreneur and chef Myleene Klass, and with her joins Jamie Barber, a serial entrepreneur and co-founder of the Hush Collective. I asked them both how they've stayed focused whilst living such a diverse and varied life. How does fame change a person? And why start a food delivery business with all the competition currently out there? Ladies and gentlemen, co-founder of My Supper Hero, Jamie Barber and Myleene Klass. So Jamie, Myleene, welcome to the show. We're here to talk about your latest venture, My Supper Hero. But first, I wanted to know a little bit more about you guys. Jamie, back in 1996, you were practicing law. In fact, you studied law at university. It was in 1999, however, that you decided to explore the world of entrepreneurship, founding the Hush Collective in Mayfair, London, with none other than Sir Roger Moore. How did you get involved in that?
It's a good question. So I originally started off in an entertainment law firm in London, and I was very privileged because I was looking after a group of the old 1960s iconic celebrities, British celebrities like Michael Caine, Roger Moore, David Frost, those kind of really iconic old school 60s black and white almost celebrities. And I got very close to Sir Roger Moore and his family. And Roger was trying to get his son Geoffrey out of a disastrous project that he got himself tangled into called Spy Cafe, which was like a Planet Hollywood themed restaurant based on his father, with Goldfinger fries and Live and Let Die burgers. It was awful. And I spent 6 months getting Geoffrey out of all these arrangements, and then Roger turned round.
Did you just say Live and Let Fries?
Live and Let Fries. God, I wish I...
You needed me. You needed a pun writer.
It could have been successful. So after that experience, Geoffrey said to me, I've spent all this time trying to start a restaurant, and now I don't know what to do with myself. So I said, look, rather than do a chained burger type restaurant, ironically, because I now own a burger restaurant, but that's
you do
story. I said, why don't you do something a bit more glamorous where you can entertain your friends and your father's friends and just be part of the scene? It could be really exciting. And he said, well, I've got no idea how to go about that. And I said, I've got no idea how to go about it either, but I'll leave law. And why don't we do it together? So we ended up with no money, no experience, no track record, securing this 10,000 square foot building in the middle of Mayfair. And we started a restaurant called Hush, which is still going today and is a fantastic restaurant. So that's kind of how I got into the restaurant business.
So where did you get the money, though, to start that? Was it from the Moore family? Was it something that you could muster up yourself?
It was typical friends and family startup money at that stage. And both Geoffrey and I were, neither of us were married. We had disposable income. We were kind of going out quite a lot. So we had a network of friends and friends of family that all wanted to be associated with something cool and glamorous on the London scene. And we set out to raise, I think it was £1 million in those days. And it took quite a long time. I think we must have had about £20 million worth of commitments until you actually ask for the money, and that £20 million worth of commitment suddenly whittled down, and we did finally manage to end up raising money that we needed, and that was the story.
So you jumped ship from law and you went into food. Myleene, at the time that Jamie was doing that, you were going on a reality television programme, Pop Stars, to sing your heart out. Did you kind of always see yourself as a musician, or did you want to go into the world of business over time?
So before I joined the pop band Hearsay, I was in a West End show. I did the final show for Miss Saigon. So I trained to go into the West End. And then having done a year in the West End and doing backing vocals, I was singing backing vocals for Katie Lang, for Michael Crawford, you name it. It was a great job at the time, but I decided I didn't want to do any more West End. And I happened to be singing for the Lily Savage show, and they were holding auditions next door for Hearsay. So I kind of just jumped on the back of those, and the rest is history. But when it comes to business, I think the biggest lesson that I learned came from Hearsay, without a shadow of a doubt. And it was when we were playing Wembley, and we were looking through our figures as to what the pop band had actually made. And there was a drastic drop one day on the day that we opened our stands, 10 minutes late. And it was on Dealy Boppers. We were making a lot of our money on Dealy Boppers because the turnover on them, as you can imagine, I mean, if you think of how much it costs to make them, and actually the profit added on top, that's where the money was coming from. So I just actually realised it wasn't from writing the songs, which we weren't doing, and it certainly wasn't from the ticket sales, which were then being shared out between 5 of us, plus management, which is 6, plus the record company, and then the TV company on top of that. You very, very quickly learn that actually it's from the merch. And so Hearsay bubble bath, Hearsay duvet sets, Hearsay socks, Easter eggs. Actually, my biggest lesson, if you talk about ups and downs, was when Hearsay very impromptu, it was in an impromptu band member leaving. We then had, I think it was just over 250,000 Easter eggs that we had to sell at Woolworths, and they pulled me in. And they just pulled in some kid going, "What do you want us to do with these Easter eggs?" And I was like, "I don't know what you want me to do with nearly 250,000 Easter eggs." It had 5 members and we only had 4 members left. So it was those kind of lessons that made me think, okay, the world of business is quite an interesting one, and the world of merchandise is one I really do enjoy. And then it went on to design. And I've had a children's range for 15 years.
Exactly. And that's international now, and we'll get onto that later. But whilst you were singing your heart out, Jamie, also you have been in the world of music, but that's not something necessarily that you pursued quite as much as Myleene. Why was that?
Probably because I was not good enough. I had a very short-lived but really, really amazing fun music career, in that I at university I had a little studio band, there were 3 of us, which was quite successful. We ended up signing a publishing deal with Warner Chappell, which was amazing. And then when I came to London, I was working at this law firm, which we were talking about earlier. And I had all the demos with me, and they were really cool for their time. They're very dated when you listen back to them, but they were full of 90s trip hop style. They were really good fun. But I managed to convince my law firm to send me to the Cannes Film Festival to cover the Cannes Film Festival. I still don't really know what that was, but I managed to convince them to send me there. And I told them that all the deals were done if I flew business, and that they needed to send me business.
Rightly so.
So they kind of went along with it to their credit. And I heard a story that George Michael was going to be on the same plane going to Nice. And so when I checked in, they said, "Have you got any preferred seating?" And I said, "I'm supposed to be sitting next to Mr. Michael." And they went, "Okay." And they set me next to George Michael on the plane. And I said to him, "Have you got 5 minutes?" And he said, "Well, I've got an hour and a half." So I said, "Well, would you mind listening to my demos?"
No, I don't know this.
And do you not know the story?
No.
So he said, "Sure, I'll listen to your demos." And the only thing I could think of at that point was that George Michael was sitting on a plane with my headphones on his ears. That was what I was just like, my God, my headphones are actually touching his ears. So I thought it was, and he kind of said, I really like these. These are really good. He said, "I'll give you a call when I get back to London." I thought, yeah, fine. But it was nice while it lasted. And then I went back to my office, and about 3 weeks later, the receptionist called up and said, "George is on the phone for you." And I had no idea at that point, I'd forgotten the connection. So I picked up the phone and he said, "It's George. I really like your demos. Could you come over to the studio and meet with us? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I kind of legged it, changed into a pair of jeans from my suit and went to the studio. And he said, I've got this record label that I'm starting called Aegean, and I'd like to sign you guys to be our first artist on the label. So I ended up spending 2 years writing and recording this album with George, and going literally from Law, changing, and then going to the studio, staying at the studio until 3 a.m. And I did that for 2 years. So 1 minute I was in the office, and the next minute I was in this studio. I was in Studio One at Psalm West. I don't know if you know Psalm West. Yeah. And I was conducting is the wrong word. I was orchestrating a 24-piece orchestra with Seal and George Michael behind me watching me doing it. And it was just the most surreal and amazing experience ever. So, but then George... his life changed when when he came out. He was forced to come out in being caught in Los Angeles in the Luz, which is a very public story. And I think the record company became a big distraction. He closed the record company down, and then that kind of knee-jerked me into leaving law and starting the restaurant, because I couldn't really go back to being a lawyer. You literally ate
your feelings.
That's very true. So there was quite a few careers.
Isn't it funny? You went from law to studio, and I went from studio to seeing lawyers all the time.
Yeah. And speaking of life changing, though, for George, granted, but arguably, Myleene, before you found fame, I suppose, on Pop Stars, what were you like as an individual, as a child? What did you want to do as an individual?
First and foremost, I wanted to work as a musician. I really wanted to work as a musician, but I did certainly love the entrepreneurial side of things. I've got a dad who was a Navy frogman, but he was hell-bent on making sure that I would be very independent, especially when he worked at sea and worked in the merchant Navy. So I just kind of helped my mum run a household. And I don't mean just sort of helping with the laundry. I mean, lighting pilot lights, helping fix the car, knowing how to change a tyre, just being really independent in that way. On my mum's side, she's an NHS nurse. So between having a father in the services and a mum as an NHS nurse, you just get on with it. Your arm could be falling off and you'd still have to go to school. So it gives you a really, really good grounding in being independent and just thinking on your feet.
It seems, Jamie, that you kind of were very much born as an entrepreneur. You've kind of put your hand into most things, from food through to law, through to being a musician as well. And you've had quite a lot of success from that.
Well, I had a big restaurant in St. James's, which was called Shoe Me, which was was the first time that I'd ever really experienced failure. And I don't think I was mentally prepared for it. Having been through it, and it was very, very depressing and dark when I went through it. When I came out of it, I realized how important an experience it was to have gone through, and how much you learn from that experience, both mentally and also financially. And it's funny because I always feel that in the States, they appreciate people that have gone through things that haven't worked out so much more than in the UK. I think in the UK, if things don't work out, it can be very judgmental. In the States, it's almost I wouldn't call it a badge of honor, but it's certainly an experience that people respect that you've been through. So I had this very, very big, high-profile restaurant called Shoe Me in St. James's, which opened with a huge fanfare and lots of celebrities and big money experiment. And I tried to do something really different and cutting edge, which was to do an Italian restaurant which had Japanese style of presentation, so very minimalist presentation, which now is very pedestrian. But at the time, people didn't understand it at all, and they thought that it was a Japanese-Italian fusion restaurant, and you were going to eat chopsticks with your spaghetti with chopsticks, and it was all very, very confused. And it crashed after about a year and a half. And I again, mentally, I just wasn't prepared for it, because I'd had a pretty kind of easy path into business from then, and just kind of assumed that that's what it was like. You did things and they were successful, and then suddenly to not be successful was a bit of a shock to the system.
And when you say mentally you weren't prepared as an individual, what do you have to prepare when you're going into business? Because it is quite a strenuous thing. You had great success. That didn't work. You obviously had a few knockbacks. Did you lose money, or did you have enough of a burn rate as an individual to be able to get you through those downturns?
As an individual, it was, I think the biggest strain was the sense of responsibility. So it was the sense of responsibility to people that had invested in me, that are employees, that I think there was the kind of slight schadenfreude that you feel from other people, where, you get this slight feeling that there are other people that secretly are quite happy that you haven't done something that's been successful. So I think that was the hardest part about it. I mean, financially, I've got a fantastic partnership with my wife. We managed to get through it, and it was fine. And these things don't last. Those dark periods don't last. It always gets better. I have been through so many of these experiences over 20 years, and it always does get better. And when you're in the depths of that dark period, you never think it will, but it always does. So those are lessons that I think you pick up just through war knocks, really.
Or hearsay.
Myleene, speaking about pressure, I mean, as soon as someone sits in front of the camera and finds a bit of notoriety, you constantly get people slag you off. I mean, look at every individual that's on social media these days. You have people that constantly have a go at them. How have you dealt mentally with the pressure that comes from being recognised?
So I think it's quite an interesting one because, I've been in the public eye for 23 years now. And I think that longevity does say something about what I do, but it's very easy for people just to assume that, I sang on a reality show and I got a lucky break, which I did do, but then the rest is, you have to prove why you still deserve your place and why you can be there. And whilst I did my years at music college, I said that my dad was a Navy diver, but he's from 6 generations of classical musicians. I also did my hours at the piano, and Jamie will know what that feels like. I put the work in. And so to then have people then deciding either your fate or if they like you on if you dyed your hair the right color or said something in a different way. I remember people pulling my accent apart, wanting to change my name. When I first got into the band, they wanted to use my middle name. I've been shying away from my middle name, Angela, for years. And then suddenly they wanted me to be known by it because nobody will understand Myleene. And it was just, at the time, it wasn't about having that racial ambiguity, which is so popular now. At the time, it was just like, well, what are we going to do with you? So it's really changed the face of celebrity and being in the public eye. And I've had to move with that and be a real comedian and keep reinventing. But first and foremost, you have to really know yourself. And that takes a lot. That takes a lot of soul searching. And when everyone's going for you, it's very similar. It's schadenfreude. If you're doing really well, great for you, but not everyone's going to like it. And if you've got new ideas and you're brave enough to step out and experiment and see if that works, again, you have to really know yourself. And as a result, now, being in my 40s, having children, you realize that none of it matters. If they're not paying your mortgage, their opinions do not count. But, when you're in your early 20s and it's very clear how people feel about you because you're standing on stage and they're telling you, it's a real testing time.
Jamie, this is maybe a question for you and we'll come back to you shortly, Myleene. But in terms of staying focused and looking at what the best thing to get involved in is, because you've been involved with multiple different restaurants, you've been an NED, you've been a CEO, you've been a founder, you've been a co-founder. When do you know what the right thing to do is and how do you not get distracted by doing everything at once?
Just doing things, in my experience, is bloody difficult. And I take my hat off to everybody that started businesses from scratch. It is really, really painful. So I never start something new on a whim, so to speak, because I just know how much energy and focus it takes up. I think I instinctively like to know how things work, and I get quite excited by understanding how things work. And when I get really excited about something, then I kind of feel like I want to do it. I'm one of these really kind of odd people that I get business envy. So I don't go into a restaurant, for example, that's fantastic and go, oh, I'm having a fantastic experience. I'll go in there going, God, I wish I owned something like this. I just kind of want to kind of create really amazing things. I think that's my driver. And hopefully most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think I just get really excited by the idea of creating something that's going to be very successful. And once I've locked onto that, then that's what I'll tend to follow.
Myleene, just looking at how you stay focused, because you've done 101 things as well, from going on I'm a Celeb and coming second, through to going on Dancing on Ice, Radio 2, you're a presenter, again, Talk Radio, Smooth Radio, Classic FM. It's a lot of stuff as well as running multiple businesses, one of which is a childwear clothing brand, which is international, the other of which is a food delivery service. How do you find time to do that and to get it all right?
I don't get it all right at all. Like Jamie said, you learn more from the things that go wrong. You know, you talk about the children's clothing. I've been in children's clothing now for 15 years. Again, it's not just a tenuous link to what I do. My grandfather worked in textiles, and I used to listen to my mum on her, as I used to fall asleep. I used to listen to the whirring of the sewing machine. And I used to watch the patterns being cut. It was something that I grew up around. But to actually have your own children's brand, it's actually really risky. And if I knew then what I know now, it's a miracle that anything gets done, as Jamie was saying, because there are so many pitfalls. As soon as we went international, I couldn't have certain colours in my clothing. You know, I wasn't allowed purple. I couldn't have white, because for some for us, we see it as purity. And in India, they wear it as a colour of mourning. For so many of our pyjamas that we make, you have fairies, which are seen as the occult in a lot of Arab states. Owls are nocturnal. Let's put those on pajamas. Not in China. Again, a harbinger of death. And it was just non-stop. I had to count the points on my stars. I had to make sure the shapes that I sewed the buttons with didn't constitute as crosses in certain countries. So you have to have a huge cultural awareness of what it is you're doing. I once was selling our best-selling T-shirt, again in the UAE, which had like a little puppy on it. And I held it up and I was like, this is our bestseller in the UK. And there were no takers. And that was a huge lesson, because they don't have dogs as domestic pets. It's just not seen as something they have. They're seen as unclean. So I then had to say, but in the UAE, we're going to change it into a wolf, and it's going to have glasses, and it became our best-selling T-shirt, this wolf with sunglasses on. But I look back at that T-shirt and I just think that was thinking on my feet. Another time I did a franchise I did a pitch to Russia and the Russian side of our children's wear. And I was showing these snowsuits, and they were not biting whatsoever, because our tog, even if we go to the highest tog in this country, it was still too cold for the conditions that they have in Russia. So the UAE again bought all of my snowsuits because the aircon is so ferocious. So if you don't have a cultural understanding, and again, on top of all of that, because it's children's wear, they have the safety requirements for children's clothes have to be of the utmost standard, because babies can't tell you, oh, this label's bothering me, this piece of cotton is, caught around my toes. So I've definitely learned on the job, but it's the longest celebrity brand, full stop, in the UK. So that's something I'm really proud of. But because of those challenges I've had, you then apply them to other business strategies, and you then look for those pitfalls. You then look for everything from the financial challenges that can catch you out, all the way through to the cultural challenges, just how things are worded, and always making sure the right people are in the room. I've been in many meetings when people are deciding that they know what somebody's going to want from a marketing perspective. But if you haven't got anyone that's actually being represented sitting in that room, well, then it's just, I suppose, it's your imagination and not much else. So that research, whether you call it, coming from a musician's point of view and having that analytical mind, all the way through to just having that experience, you learn very, very quickly, but you certainly learn the hard way in business.
And that's called My K Clothing. Genius name. I know exactly why you've done that. And again, the why for that was because you simply couldn't find the product, you simply couldn't find what you were looking for, or you just liked garments, having obviously spoken about the money you made from Hearsay's shortfall there.
I was about to have a baby and I didn't like the colours that were out there. It was blue for boys, pink for girls, and yellow if you were kind of undecided, and the really insipid yellow at that. And so I went with black, because I thought, I've got a Spanish grandmother. These will be really exotic Mediterranean clothes. And then I just had a deluge of people saying, why are you dressing babies in black? It's not, are you taking them to a funeral? It's so miserable. Children don't need to have LBDs. And suddenly I was just like, I just thought that black dresses looked nice. But it turned out there was a whole appetite from mothers who were as well bucking the trend, kicking against ABC and primary colours and pink and blue. And they also wanted black. And it became a bestseller immediately. So it didn't matter what everyone else thought. You just also have to go with your gut. It's in 33 countries. It's international. It's 15 years in the making.
But Jamie, you famously once said that to keep that entrepreneurial spirit, it's really the art of staying alive. You just get lucky. What did you mean by that? Can people learn to become an entrepreneur, or are you born into that world?
I think when you do something that's successful, people just see the end result, so they assume that it's all happened overnight. And I think my experience is that you have to be unbelievably tenacious and keep going, keep pushing down doors, never take no for an answer, try and learn and fix on the job. And then, as I say, I think it's the art of staying alive until you get lucky, because there's no silver bullet that suddenly makes things successful. It's all the product of long hours and hard work. And I have to say, without kind of flattering Myleene, I don't know how she has the time to do the number of things you do. She's got an unbelievable work ethic, but she's just working constantly on stuff. And I kind of really admire that. And it's just also quite exciting to be a part of that energy.
Oh, that's very kind. See, I really admire the team that Jamie's got around him, because he's got a super secret power, and that's his wife, Claire. Everyone should have a Claire. I would like a Claire. She's incredible. But Jamie's right in putting a team together that is just indelible. And also when you're picking who you're choosing, or when you're choosing who to work with, it's not just a case of they look successful or it's definitely going to work with this person. It's, can you work with this person? Jamie's got phenomenal family values, phenomenal, second to none. In fact, straight after this, he's running off to see his daughter in the school play. And he's like, I have to be on time. And I really admire that, because many people don't necessarily have those values anymore, but it then shows in his work and his body of work and how he works and who he's looking after and how he looks after those people. So it's definitely, look, we met on the school run, so it definitely says a lot about who Jamie is. And
that's in seriousness, that's one of the big advantages of being an entrepreneur and having your own business, is that you are more flexible, or you have the ability to be more flexible with your time.
But also, no one's going to care about it like you.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll always go the extra mile. It's like there's nothing, if you ask me to do it and I know it's gonna help our business, it's done. It won't be a case of I'll get it done tomorrow, it's on my list of to do with so many other people. If there's no sort of immediate effect or benefit, then it just gets parked. But it's really nice to work with someone who's got this similar. Well, actually, you don't sleep either, Jamie.
No, not in the same way. but I think that I think when you have your own businesses, I think that the traditional separation between work and home life all melds into one. So it all just becomes part of your life. And actually, I find that very satisfying. I don't, maybe I should cut off the weekend that I never check any emails or I don't ever respond to anything, because that's kind of what you're supposed to do. But actually, it all feels like one journey. And it's if part of what you do as work is enjoyable, then it doesn't actually encroach into your life in that way.
But you've got daughters, I've got daughters, and I think it's actually really important to not close the door on work and show them how to work, but to do it in a positive way. We do the tastings in Jamie's kitchen. If we're doing a photo shoot, I bring my plates. I mean, Jamie, bless him, is like, have you got any interesting tea towels? I'm like, do I look like the kind of girl who has any tea towels? But bless you for thinking I would. It's just a really nice sort of, it's really homely. It's really honest. The girls get involved. They taste the food. They help design the flyers. Yep. It's something that I think is really important for our families to see how we work, and that it's not a negative thing, because it's impacting the family. And actually, I'd love for my children to go into business that makes them happy ultimately. And that's the lesson 100%. Right there. Like, I love what I do. Jamie absolutely adores what he does. And so it doesn't feel like work, and everyone's got to work.
100%.
So, you've got to find a job that you love.
But looking at success, I suppose, you say everybody's got to work, and you've clearly both built up brilliant brands, both individually and I suppose as a business as well. But is success monetary, or is it having the time to go and pick your kid up at 6:30 because she needs to be picked up, or go and see her at the school play? What is success to you, Myleene? Let's start with you.
Okay, so for a long time I was a single working mum, and I think I'll always still see myself as that. I have got a fiance and we have a new baby, but ultimately, for me,
congratulations.
I wanted to make sure that my home life and my work life, if there is such a thing, was balanced, or was as balanced as it could be. And that for me, just striving to find that balance, that's my success. I want my girls to have me at home and to be present there. And the fact that I created a job where they could come to work with me. You know, I shoot a children's brand. Up until they were 8 years old, they worked on that with me. They were my muses, and now they help pick the clothing out for my adult ranges. I was with many brands before. I'm with my current brand, and to work with Marks and Spencer's for 7 years, to work with Littlewoods for another 7 years, and to then work with Next. You get a whole. That's all the girls have seen.
That's all they
know. 14,
yeah.
so that's all they've seen coming and going from the household. But again, it's that longevity. You know, I think everyone can get a lucky chance if they keep on pushing to a degree. But it's how do you hold on to that? And I want them to see that it takes a lot of hard work. You know, it takes a lot of hustling. It really does. And that hustling, it's not a negative thing. I think, you know, when men do it in business, it's seen as, you know, an admirable thing. And I want those same attributes when as a woman in business to be recognized, not only by my children, but actually, you know, I very much encourage other women, working women in the groups that I work with. There's one group of designers that I work with who are just all mothers, because I know the job will be done by 5:30. It'll be very efficiently run because we've all got tea time.
But Jamie's also got a school play to go to at 6:30, so he'll be done by that point. But Jamie, in terms of what success looks like to you then, Jamie, is it being able to clock off when you want to clock off, or is it having some financial freedom? We'll reference the Financial Times article shortly.
Well, you've referenced the Financial Times article, and that's interesting. I think for me, success is framed by creating something that has life and energy and is deemed as being successful, and that's what I get a kick out of. I think I'm lucky that I've achieved a level of I wouldn't call it financial independence because.
Because you've got teenagers.
Because I've got teenagers and I've got a mortgage and I've got, you're never completely independent. But and we still worry about, stuff financially. But yes, we go on holidays, and so we've got that level of security. But I've never really been driven by big material stuff. So we don't spend in that way. We don't. We're just not particularly interested in material possessions. I think it's much more important that we've got a very strong family unit. We spend time together as a family, and we manage to create stuff that people like and we feel really proud of. I think that's the big thing. I love to be associated with things that I'm really proud of. It just gives me a sense of fulfillment.
Things are changing. People are looking more so at less of a sort of white male boardroom, more diversity and more inclusion, which is brilliant. And the world of kind of entrepreneurialism for females is a tough one. What would you kind of advise individual women going into business to do?
Learn from the guys. Do not take no for an answer. I see guys all the time blag it, and I see women, how should I put this? Guys will be like, yeah, I can do that. And girls will be like, they'll think about it and they'll be more honest about it, I suppose. I haven't tried that yet, and I will give it a go, and they'll be more conscientious about their answer. And I just think that we also need the guys. We very, very much so need the guys to turn around and cheer for us. And I think that definitely comes when you've got, fathers of daughters as well. And you've got a phenomenal, as I said, you've got a wife behind you as well. It's about just bringing all of that to the forefront. I talked about that racial ambiguity. There were no women that looked like me other than Vanessa May when I was growing up. And she still was also not I think she's, is she from Thailand? And so, I'm a mixed race, Austrian, Filipino, Chinese, Spanish. I mean, there's nobody that I really could sort of just go, oh, you're from my neck of the woods. And I was born in Norfolk as well, so there really was nobody that was as mixed as I was. But there's so many mixed race girls now, and it's all those women that came before. I remember when I was pregnant and working on TV, I literally got hate mail. It's like people wanted me to be sent to the country to the countryside in my confinement. Yes. Until I'd had my baby. Then it came down to breastfeeding. Then it came down to working mothers. And it just doesn't stop. But the only way that we can actually keep the face of business and a female out there is just by doing it, but also getting those opportunities from other women. I make sure I give those opportunities to other women, but we need the men on board. When we say things are going to be equal, that's exactly how they have to be. They have to be equal. And I've often walked into a board with, 10 guys and maybe 2 women, and those 2 women are me and my manager, Sev. So it's nice to see that changing, but it's also wonderful to see it. It's not wonderful to see that message is feeding down to our daughters, because they don't know any different. They just see us doing it. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. So that's what they need to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. Having 2 teenage daughters, I feel quite a feminist on their behalf, in that, I try and build up their confidence to be able to go head on into battle in any situation, and feel that they have just as much reason to achieve and ability to achieve as anybody else in that room. And it always irritates me if I do sense that there's some kind of male-female angle at play, because that's just not acceptable now, especially for my daughters.
And it's brilliant to see that you guys are both in business together. And having met on the school run, I'm fascinated by how you actually struck that conversation up and went, right, I think now's the time to go into business. When you're picking your children up from school, just how did that happen?
I was actually complaining. I was complaining about having to go home in lockdown and try and figure out what else to cook, because I said to him, I feel like I'm living in my kitchen. I am living in the kitchen and I'm running out of ideas. I ran out of ideas months ago, and I'm working this rotation of the same 4 meals.
We found lockdown exhausting. I mean, everybody found lockdown horrific. And we were finding as a family that the challenge of constantly cooking and preparing and chopping and tidying up relentless. And the only other solutions out there, because obviously restaurants were closed, but the only other solutions were kind of recipe boxes or takeaways. And neither of those worked for us. The recipe boxes we found very simple and basic and not particularly appealing. And the takeaways just felt junky and unhealthy and easy. And so we were trying to find a way to eat brilliantly at home with less than 10 minutes of effort, so that we could just do other things that we wanted to do in our lives, like watch Netflix or just have a chat. And just found that there wasn't that solution. And I think both of us had the same experience. And I think that's why we really ultimately decided to set this business up. Interestingly, as the world has returned to normal, that solution, even though restaurants are still back in action, that solution still feels really important, because I just want, as a family, 1 day a week where the effort is taken out of the evening, and I can just eat really well and move on to other stuff. So even post lockdown, it feels like it's part of the meal cycle that we all really want.
And also, it's been really nice to be able to tailor make it. I think you talk about those recipe boxes that arrive. It's my 10-year-old daughter. That they are so aware of their surroundings, and she would have, she'd be making things out of the packaging, because there was just so much packaging, and she would always be talking about the packaging, as she should be. That's what they're learning about at the moment. And when we came to My Supper Hero, everything's compostable. It's brilliant. I mean, Jamie's been sourcing in places just far and few and far between, but we've got plant-based packaging. So also that guilt is eradicated. It's just a very different setup. You've got 10 minutes rather than having to get the ingredients and still analyze the recipe and feel like you need to have a degree in some science degree, and just having to break it all down again and figuring out what you should have preheated, and then you're chopping again. It's just 10 minutes. It's done for you.
So Myleene, you famously said on the website, more chatting, less chopping. Are you a good cook or are you a bad cook? Because I really can't cook to save my life. So the meal box market does appeal to me quite heavily.
I'm a functional cook. So I have a lot of admiration and for people that can cook. I think they're like alchemists. I've got a sister who'll go, this needs more garlic. I mean, I don't know what this needs. I just know it needs something. And I just think that, what Jamie does and what restaurant owners and chefs and all of the catering industry, it's not something I've necessarily known how to do, but I certainly can appreciate it. what is it they say, that not everybody can, not everyone can march in the parade. You still need people clapping on the sides, and I'm applauding. I'm good in the eating. So I still want good food, but I also have children that I have to make the food for. So this works for me because it's 10 minutes. I can do 10 minutes because it's emptying out the bags.
So are you the target market? You're the target market then, Myleene. You've gone from clothing to cooking. Obviously, Jamie's helped you with the cooking side of things. But the world of sort of meal prep and meal box marketing, I suppose, it's not exactly lucrative. Big businesses make a lot of loss for a long period of time. Why did you decide to go into that world?
Firstly, everyone needs to eat. And secondly, when those boxes arrive, the judgment that your neighbours usually have for you, like takeaway at number 22, or you just see these bright boxes that you're just thinking, you know, again, it's wasteful, it's packaging, no one's cooking in there. I'm not saying it's judgment on the neighborhood, but I'm just saying that nobody willingly walks in with these boxes saying this is what we're eating tonight. So even that side of things I've really enjoyed doing with Jamie. We've marketed the boxes and the bags just to look like something you would want to walk down the road with. You know, it could almost be mistaken
as shopping. Brilliant.
It's about the whole process.
They look very nice.
It's about the whole experience. And I've really enjoyed that side of things because ultimately, you're marketing to people like yourself and me who don't necessarily enjoy all that time in the kitchen, but definitely enjoy the time around the table.
And it looks brilliant online. I mean, there's no way in hell, frankly, even if I used one of your boxes, I'd be able to do it because I don't even know how to turn the cooker on, to be honest, Myleene. That's where I fall down. But in terms of Jamie, where you kind of...
I'm going to take your address and we're going to send it to you and we'll put this to the test. I'm going to put this to the test.
And I'll have my ta-da moment.
Just turn the oven on. The rest is done for you.
Oh, God, here's hoping. Jamie, you must have obviously been quite heavily involved in trying to get this off the ground, knowing obviously A, how to turn the oven on, and B, how to cook. That's pretty integral when starting this business specifically. Nevertheless, Myleene's obviously the driving force in terms of making sure people hear about it. Just how much effort have you had to put in to this new business, having seen the success that you have seen to date?
It's been a lot of hard work, but it's been a lot of fun. And I think what's been enjoyable is that the first thing we do is start with the product, so that there are recipes there are dishes there that I really want to eat. So we've got a fantastic Portuguese marinated spatchcock chicken, which comes with a roasted black garlic aioli, and we have Pierre Kaufmann's potatoes with a piri piri butter, and they're just really, really lovely dishes to eat. We've got a roast teriyaki broccoli with miso marinated salmon and bao.
Stop it.
So anyway, food is delicious. So I'm getting carried away because I'm hungry. But
naughty.
I think what was really enjoyable is that it wasn't just the initial product, but because it was a new business, we were able to start it as a really positive, ethical company. So we followed this system called B Corp, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's
I've seen that it's B Corp pending online. I have seen that.
So. Yeah, so you can't actually get your certification until you've been trading for a year, but we've gone through the initial testing to make sure that we're B Corp pending. But what that means is that we've had to concentrate on making sure that the deliveries as much as possible are emissions free, that the packaging is plant-based as much as it can be, that we've got a diverse team that works for us, that we know our supply chain. And actually, it's a lot easier to set those things up from scratch than it is to try and retrofit it on a mature business. So it was really exciting for us to set this business up in a really great way, not just have a great product, but then not care about anything else. We've got a group of restaurants separate to My Supper Hero, which have been through a difficult couple of years through COVID, and we've managed to fight through it and have actually... We've shown some real entrepreneurial skill and some agility, and we fought our battles. And last year, despite the fact that we were closed for 3 months of the year, managed to actually get over this psychological hurdle of actually making over £1 million profit during that period, which was a fantastic achievement and something that we wanted to kind of share with our teams. Saying that, quite a lot of that money went out in different ways, whether it's to banks or to refurb our existing estate, but psychologically it was a great achievement for us.
Just talk to me then about how you pivoted and overcame that. To make £1 million net profit in a year is hard even in the best of times. You said there were some bank repayments and there was some refurb, and that's fine. But how did you overcome that barrier? 3 months not trading, you still made £1 million net.
Well, the group of restaurants I've got, so I've got Hush in Mayfair, then I have a group of burger restaurants called Haché, the burger brasseries, and we've got some Brazilian restaurants called Cabana. And we'd been working on a strategy for 2 or 3 years to really supercharge those restaurants, and then COVID just took the rug under that. But as soon as we started to emerge from COVID in 2021, all of the work, the groundwork that we'd set up started to kind of grow fruit. So the burger business had an unbelievable delivery add-on business, and during the various lockdowns, we were doing 5 times the amount of delivery business that we were doing previously. And then I think there was so much anticipation of restaurants reopening, and we were so geared up to take advantage of that as soon as we were allowed to open, we did open. We saw surges that we were able to cope with, and people had a fantastic experience and kept coming back, and that fueled just a phenomenal year for us. So it was a lot of hard work and a lot of groundwork preparation before we got there.
And you've obviously set teams up before when you start businesses. You've obviously been able to know what works and what doesn't work. What were the kind of basics that you went into My Supper Hero with? What was the team that you put in place from day one?
Well, obviously, we needed a team of chefs to execute the boxes, and we've got a head chef called Charlie Bronson, who came from the D&D restaurant group, brilliant cook, and he's got a little team that works with him. And then there's a side which I had no exposure or experience to, which was the e-commerce side. So we had to have somebody that actually was able to look after the development of the site, to be able to manage the integrations with all the different software platforms that we need. And that was something that was a massive steep learning curve for me, because I've been in business 20 years and have never done a digital business before. And so I'm playing a very, very fast catch up with people that have been in this industry for 10, 15 years. And I'm finding that just as a personal development, I'm finding that really exciting and interesting.
I was going to say, because the world has changed massively over the last 20 years, where people used to kind of go into a restaurant to enjoy their food and, remember the moment themselves. They now share it online, and it's a very Instagram-orientated world. Have you had to build this business around the Instagrammable aspect, Myleene?
It's funny you say that. So we'd be putting together mood boards and of how we wanted our food to look, the tones, the colours, even the way that it was presented. I love the econometric side of things when it comes to the figures online. I love the analytical side of things. I love the visuals of it, the pace, having to find the handwriting, having to find the tone of voice for it. We wanted it to again, we didn't want it to look too stark. I think that a lot of people often try to make things look fresh and clean, but in so doing, they zap out any personality that's within the meal. And eating's fun, it's passionate, it is, like we said, less chopping, more chatting. You just want to get in there and you want to talk to your friends. We haven't seen our friends for 100 years. We want to get back to that. So it was really important that we put the personality back into it as well. And like you said, we were saying before, it wasn't just purely, here is your food, it has been delivered, it is a function. We wanted from the box through to the presentation, through to, as we said, the voice. I didn't want it to be a case of, here's a really long video explaining how to make this fish. All the work has already been done. And it was just nice to add just a little bit of, I don't know, a little something on the top, just a little bit of personality and experience. And you're absolutely right. The way that we consume our media now, it's fast. It's really fast. No one's sitting down watching a half-hour program now on how to put this together. It's often 30 seconds, 15 seconds if you're hitting the sweet spot on TikTok.
100%. In fact, TikTok's a brilliant market. Are you guys looking at marketing on TikTok? It sounds like it's a pretty good synergy there.
It's like you've read our minds.
Yes, can't comment. There's obviously Reels and TikTok are all unbelievably great platforms, and particularly for food.
Look, 100,000 people watched me make a fish in 15 seconds for my fiance last night. What can I say? There's a market for it.
To be fair, though, 15 seconds is pretty quick to make a fish. I didn't even know you could do it in that time.
There you go. Once you turn that oven on, you're off.
Well, there we go. That takes 15 seconds in and of itself. And just looking, I suppose, at the clientele that you have within the Hush group, I suppose, fairly high end, very, very kind of good quality food. Again, the way that you've marketed marketed My Supper Hero, you've gone for memberships rather than subscriptions. Is that again to look at that kind of higher tier clientele?
No, I don't. I think that we class My Supper Hero as being premium affordable. The meals all range from £12.50 to maybe £15 per person, which really puts it quite squarely as an alternative to having a takeaway from a premium restaurant or I mean, to be honest, I think it's quite difficult to go out to eat at the moment. By the time you've travelled somewhere and you've had a bottle of wine, it's not easy to go out to eat at that kind of price. So it's something that is within the price point of a lot of households, not every household, but a lot of households. So I don't think there was a conscious desire to kind of hit a high-end premium tier. We've seen some menu boxes or meal kits that are up at the sort of £120 to £150 per head, and that's of no interest to us personally.
What are you getting for that?
I mean, a lot of hassle and a lot of twiddly things. I did one over lockdown. It took me hours.
Oh,
I had so many pans out. It was exhausting.
You've lost us both.
Was exhausting.
I think actually what you do get with that, and I know because I've ordered them, is you get a small man that turns up and turns your oven on for you. It's genius. It really is. It really is. It's excellent.
Yes, well, you're going to get Myleene turning the oven on.
Oh,
from what I hear, yeah.
I'd pay £120 for that. Don't you worry about that. Thank you so much, Myleene. In terms then of kind of where the company's going, you've been going for 10 weeks. Are we going to be finding, Christmas dinners being delivered through our door via My Supper Hero this Christmas coming?
Well, we did. Yes, we did Christmas.
Well, okay.
Yeah, we've got a fantastic Valentine's Day lamb, which you probably would have missed the cutoff date to order that. But certainly we're looking at doing Sunday roast. I think we're looking to help people with solutions to their issues. And if people say that they really want us to do,
it's not completely altruistic.
Yeah.
I'm always like, can we do that cauliflower roast again? It's just great.
Exactly. We're trying to fix a need, and we're listening to people. We've got a little Facebook group where people are swapping ideas as to what they want to see out of us, and we're responding to that. Ultimately, we've just got to match up people's wants with our product.
But if I want to order one of these potential lamb roasts for Valentine's Day, or next year I want to order a Christmas turkey for Christmas Day, where do I go?
You go to My Supper Hero. That's it. We'll do the rest.
Which is www.mysupperhero.com.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. Join me next week, Wednesday at 8 a.m. on all podcast platforms where we'll be speaking to another leading entrepreneur. Show your support by subscribing, as without you, this podcast wouldn't happen. Produced by Pinpoint Media and sponsored by Capsule Cover, this was a Success is in the Mind podcast. Take care.